from.
Before we, everyone's just getting down, sitting again, I'm going to ask those who have served our country, our veterans, to please stand. And let's thank them. Figured that happens once about every 7 years that we have a school board meeting on Veterans Day, and it's a well-earned thanks and respect. So with that start, we have recognition. Do I turn it over to Sandy then?
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask Elaine to step up to the mic. This is Elaine Smith. We actually have 3 students that we recently received notification. We had 1 student, Christopher Van Summer, who was recognized as a commended student. And then we have Elaine Smith, or Ellie, and Hannah Leaders, who are semifinalists. And just to give you that perspective again, it started out with 1.4 million juniors who put their applications in to compete in the 2015 National Merit Scholarship Program. And they did that by taking the 2013 preliminary SAT. And then they narrowed that down to 50,000 high scores. And from that, then about 2/3 of them, or 34,000, are recognized as commended, so that they are students of promise because of their academic performance. And then now recently we've learned that the semifinalists then are even a smaller portion of that number, and we have 2 in the district, so we're ecstatic. So a semifinalist must have an outstanding academic record throughout high school, be endorsed and recommended by a high school official, write an essay, and earn SAT scores that confirm the student's earlier performance on the qualifying test. And now they will wait, it'll take till February, but she's awaiting then here. She's a finalist, and then hopefully can be some opportunities for scholarships as well. So tell us a little bit about the process. So I hear you just recently took the SAT then?
Yes, I took it in October, and we got the results back, and they look positive, so and my dad helped me with the essay a little bit, but I did most of it, so great. And yeah, it's been cool to see there's a lot of opportunities for scholarships, so we're hoping that I can plan to those.
Okay. And other than taking high academics, studying, what are you doing in addition to your academic work in school?
I play volleyball and run track, and I'm in SAD and AMP and Teens Encounter Christ.
Oh, just a little bit. Keep busy. And plans for next year?
I'm not sure where I'm going to go yet. I've applied to several schools, but I'm looking to major in either biology or chemistry, and I hope to go to medical school.
Congratulations. This is a very high honor to be even the semifinalists, and then we'll look forward to hearing about your finalist status in February. Any questions?
Mr. President,
Yes, Lynn.
can you tell me what AMP is? You mentioned AMP is one of your activities that you're involved in.
It's Athletes Making Progress, and it's through the high school, and we promote sportsmanship and attendance to athletic events.
Thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you.
A well-deserved round of applause. Seeing your dad there in the front row, I was very tempted to say a joke, but he's the hero, so I'll leave those. All right, next we have state honor institutions.
Yes. I know there's a few out there, so if all of my high school and or middle school state honors musicians would step up on the mic, please. Here they come. And you can see listed up front that we have in the middle school band orchestra, we had Rebecca Tank, Mackenzie Farrell, Connor Wren, Kristen Fisher, and in the choir, Briella Anderson, Lane Burke, Kristen Garber, Victoria Leone, Joey Schmidt. Hopefully I said those close. And the high school, we had a conflict this evening. The band is having their band banquet tonight, of course. But in the band, the honors were Brandon Furman with trombone, Jeremiah Tank, Kia, oh, I don't know how to say her last name, Bea, John Bent, and Alex Collins. So if you would each step forward, say your name for us, and just like a 15-second blurb on what you enjoy best about your experience in the honors choir, band, or orchestra. There you go.
name's Mackenzie, and something I really enjoyed about being in the honors band was playing with a bunch of people who really tried their hardest.
My name's Carson, and what I really liked about being in honors choir was we got to be involved with a bunch of musicians that actually wanted to do music and pursue music.
I'm Rebecca Tank, and I liked how in honors band, how the conductor conducted with a lot of emotion and not just focused on the notes.
Rebecca, can you tell us too, how did you rehearse your music? I mean, did you have music before you even went down to Madison?
Yeah, we got the music a couple months before the concert and stuff, and then we practiced it for 2 days, and then the concert was after that.
Okay, thanks.
My name's Lambert. My favorite part would be that we were with a bunch of singers and kind of give it in.
You can hold it down.
Okay. I'm Victoria Leone, and I guess my favorite part of honors choir was that I don't know, it's such an amazing experience. You come from all these places and you meet people that you've never met before, and you all come to just do something that everyone loves, and it's not some 6th grade, 8th grade voice. It's just amazing. Everyone sounds so professional, and I guess that's my favorite part.
Good, you guys are giving me goosebumps. It's an outstanding experience. These students represent, once again, some of our top performers in our arts, and we know that both the district and the community highly support the arts. So we thank you for taking the time. Did you have to audition as well? Yes. Yeah. All right. And we hope to see you in a few years in the musicals at the high school. That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next on the agenda under recognition, we have the Wisconsin Networking Group donation. And Dave Granville, this is your topic.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So I had the pleasure of meeting some adults in our community that make a difference, and we're here tonight to recognize them. The name of their organization is WING, the Wisconsin Networking Group, and at first I'm going to tell you what they did for our district, and then I'll let them tell you a little bit about their organization. So this organization decided to take on an opportunity to serve our district and our students by sponsoring our Angel Fund. And the Angel Fund is a fund that exists in all of our schools, and they're monies that are raised to support our students who may need some support to fully enjoy the educational experience. They go for things such as student fees, sometimes school-age care, gas cards to allow families to enjoy after-school events, sometimes clothing, food, lunch accounts with outstanding balances, and a variety of other things that just help students fully enjoy the educational experience. And they donated over $1,000 to this fund, which was fantastic. In addition to that, they donated a truck full, and I can attest to that, it was a truck full of backpacks. And they go for our backpack program, which also helps our students, and we have local churches in the area support the backpack program by providing food and supplies to help ensure that our students not only are taken care of in school, but also have support at home. So it's a fantastic donation, very much appreciated. And with that, I'm going to introduce Nancy Martell. I'll let Nancy introduce the rest of her group, and she can talk a little bit about their organization. Nancy.
Hello, everybody.
You can raise it.
I've got a little bit of height going for me. Thank you so much for inviting us and our WING group to meet with you. We're excited to be here. WING group, we started about 7 years ago as an opportunity for local east of the St. Croix River business owners and executives to help one another in business. Again, it was about 7 years ago, and this year we said we really need to provide a give back component. So we thought the best way to do that was to donate to the Angel Foundation, With me to the right is Stephanie Weber. I've got Todd Myhoff and Matt Frisbee. Our group is about 15 members, various backgrounds, but we help each other in any way possible in business. But our goal for 2015 is to do more with the Angel Foundation. So I think it's going to require a little more discussion in how we can better integrate to see what the needs are and how we can elevate and raise the bar so that we can do more, such as food contributions, supplies, backpacks. Let's take it a next step. We get together every second Friday morning at 7:30 at the Hudson Keys. So you're all welcome if you're free. Sit in to our group and learn about what we do and how we try to help one another. And that's basically it, unless any of my distinguished members would like to speak.
Any comments from board members or questions?
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you very much for your donation. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on. That concludes the recognitions, and of course, we're always appreciative of the efforts of our students and community members, and appreciate their contributions and their achievements. So, again, congratulations to them and their families in particular. All right, on to superintendent's report, and we have the referendum results. Mary?
Thank you, President Johnson. The canvassing occurred this morning, so these results are final and official. And for question 1, that was the question for approximately 99.9 million. There were 5,835 yes votes and 8,100 no votes. For question 2, that was for the auditorium for 6.5 million. There were 5,744 votes, and then no, 8,088 votes. If you look at those votes as far as percentages of the total, both the question 1 and question 2, there were 42% were yes votes and 58% are no votes for both questions. Certainly the board and administration, staff, and supporters are disappointed with the results, but our community has spoken and has said at this point that this plan at this time is not the right plan, or they don't support this plan. If you compare the question 1 results and the question 2 results, certainly they're very similar, and I think that speaks well to what Sandy just talked about, our community and the support for the arts, that they were so closely aligned. There was a very high voter turnout at this election, and certainly the board and the administration want that kind of high voter turnout so that it is a community decision. There were almost 14,000 total votes for the referendum. The number of yes votes really is the highest in our history of votes for yes for a referendum. And we've also heard from a number of no voters. We heard before the referendum occurred and after the referendum that they support education, they support the Hudson schools, and they support a plan for secondary space, just not this plan. So with that, if you put the yes votes together with numerous people who also voted no and do support a plan, it's certainly evidence of community support, strong community support for education and for the Hudson schools.
Any questions for Mary on the referendum results? Okay. That concludes then reports, except I guess Brian and I have the next report. That is the secondary space for learning next steps. And Brian, do you want to introduce it?
Yeah, sure. So don't have a formal report on this, but just as kind of next steps, we certainly still have an issue with our with both the amount of space in secondary education and also the quality of the space. So I think, Jamie and I's recommendation as a board is that we do two things. One is that we assemble kind of a representation from the community that kind of really represents different groups in the community to come together to help us put together a plan where the community will support. And so we need to put that plan into motion. And the second thing is that we would like to do a pretty kind of comprehensive survey of our community. Once we have a little bit more specifics in terms of some feedback we've gathered to ensure that we have kind of great lines of communication with our community. So there's a board work session later in November. What's the date for that, Jamie?
November 24th.
So the one of the main topics in that will be us as a board to kind of consider both of those suggestions and to put together a more kind of formal plan with timelines, specific actions, and that we come back to the community. We want to make sure we move quickly, but we want to make sure we move purposefully on the next steps. But we certainly are going to keep moving the ball forward. We just want to make sure that we just have a real definitive plan. We need to spend some time on it as a board. So that was, anything else you want to add to that, Jamie?
Well, I think you hit the key points. In addition to that, I would add that there will be a plan should any further work be done on short-term solutions, because obviously we've been dealing with short-term solutions on space issues for almost a decade, and we have to do that a little bit longer now that this referendum did not pass. But I think the primary goal for this upcoming work session and for the weeks and months following will be to come up with a plan that can gain a majority of the community. We can't solve this space issue and upgrade the facilities without support of the majority of the voters. And so I think it's really imperative that this be high public participation, and that this is going to be a board led process that is not going to be rushed, because I think it's very evident we need to do it right as opposed to do it quickly. So there's other comments at this time, but I would encourage is that we come with an open mind to the next work session and with our sleeves rolled up, ready to tackle this issue. Anyone else?
Mr. President, I support the action and the concept moving forward. I'm thinking that as you were discussing this, that there have been some attempts. There have been attempts in the past to assess the interests of this community. The 800-member survey comes to mind. So there's been some attempts already to try to ascertain what this community would support. So I think I'll be thinking with you, but I think it's important for us to think about what's been done in the past and what can we do differently going forward, not just repeat the same thing. So
I agree that this is, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We don't want to necessarily take out what might have been able to work, but we need to focus on an overall plan that's going to gain a majority of the voters. And I think that this plan also could include lots of things. I mean, we have to decide the timeline. When we started introducing this, and I guess as we get into the topics for action, the first one was a post-referendum survey. And I think that first you have to find out what your plan is. When we contacted companies that do this, independent companies, this is not going to be a district-conducted survey in the sense of us having employees doing this per se, but it will be developed by an independent organization that specializes in this. And one of the advice that they gave is you need to have a plan first before you just run out and do a survey. So, if the plan is, also depends on when you would come back with a referendum, so the timing, things like hiring of an architect and so forth, all of that needs to be more conceptualized, and I think that that's something that us as a board need to lead, and then from there find out what the process is going to be. But we need to, I think your point is we need to build on what we know as opposed to starting completely over, or repeating things that haven't worked in the past. We don't want to do that. Anything else?
Mr. President?
Yes, Sandy.
I believe that there is a plan somewhere that everybody in this community will agree to. The community is not anti-education, not the people that have contacted me. They were against this plan for a whole bunch of reasons. All of the reasons that they've stated to me, I believe, were valid. But I do think that there is something out there that we can come up with that we can bring both the yes and no people together on, a compromise, so to say, and I think it's there. We just need to find out what it is and get to them with that compromise.
Yep, well said. Anyone else have a comment?
Yeah, so just a couple of things. I think we've gathered and dealt with a tremendous amount of information. So, a lot of people might think that we're starting back at square one, which we're not. At times, sometimes, failure helps you get to that success. And personally, I had a lot of failure in my life, but those successes wouldn't have been as great if I didn't go through some of those failures along the way. So, I agree with you, Sandy. There is a plan that's out there for us to work on. When we think differently this time, and the involvement, when we talk about some of the work sessions, because I hear folks say that, we don't get into discussions, we don't get into debates, we're just, a team that's kind of following or towing the line, and it's just not the case. When we get in these work sessions or when we have our subcommittee meetings, a lot of great discussion happens there. So, I'd like to propose that, for the next work session, we consider having it here and having it televised. I'd even consider us trying to reach out and get some topics that people want to hear us discuss before that meeting on the 24th. I know it's a very short amount of time, but I think that it would at least give us some information that people want to hear about, and consider some other ideas. But to have them in this type of a forum, to have them televised, to have them where people get a chance to see what we're discussing, hopefully can start to at least change some of the perception that's out there that it's just a bunch of zombies walking around. So, that's one thing that's important. The survey, I think, is also critical. The timing of it, and I guess I just want to make sure that people understand that, because I've had some people come up and say, so what, is it going to be 4 years before we can go back to referendum? Is there a time frame that's put to this? And I don't think that's the case. I don't know all the laws to this, but you could turn around and do a referendum rather quickly if you wanted to do that. And of course, it's not the right choice for us to make, at least my opinion. I'm sure all of you would support that up here as well. But, the timing of it is such, and Jamie or Mary, maybe, I don't know if you could explain that, I think, but it'd be important for us to understand that, when we would maybe need, if we were to get back to referendum, what sort of time frame that would be, what's maybe the earliest potential. Again, I don't want to say that that's happening, but, the reality is we don't have to wait a couple of years for this to go back to referendum, but we do need to make sure that we've got a plan that's the best that we can come up with for this community to get behind and support. So I just want to make sure that we get some of that out there.
Well, as far as what's the shortest amount of time, I guess it would be the 75 days, or you need to have
70 days.
70 days, all right. I added an extra 5 days there. All right, so 70 days that needs to be, the vote would need to be done. And I think, if my math is right, that would put us in about our work session, if we were to do it for, say, a February spring primary. I think that's a little bit quick, but considering we wouldn't have even developed our plan yet. For April, that would be late January. But that's when you get to the survey part of it, that's, again, goes back to which type of survey. The one company that was approached indicates that depends on what your plan is for coming back. If your plan is to turn around and come back very quick, then maybe the short form survey, that's a 3-pager, 2 or 3-pager, would be what you use. If your plan is something that's further out than 6 months, maybe a year or in that vicinity, then you may want to develop your public input first and then come forward with a longer survey that would have more information, facts, details, and so forth included with it. That's more expensive survey. Certainly, we're not precluded from doing both, and I think that we can discuss that at this next work session. I'm not opposed at all to conducting it here, provided that we haven't looked at schedules yet. I don't want to commit. If this room is being used for something else, we don't want to kick them out, but I think your position about public input is never going to be downplayed, I think, at all levels. Public is always invited to make comments. In fact, we've gotten some just since last Tuesday. So we're always open to receiving that. It's just a question of when will that be most critical, and I think it's from the beginning right up until we make the decision. I don't know, unless somebody else has. Brian, do you have anything to add on that?
No.
All right.
Mr. President?
Yes, Sandy.
I would just like to say that I agree with Bruce, that I think that the work sessions should be held here and they should be taped, videoed, so that they can be out there so people can see what we're doing. So it doesn't appear like we're doing everything behind the door, and then coming here and just rubber stamping what we've already decided. They can actually see the process. I think that will help a lot with community perception of how much work goes into this and what we are truly coming up with. I think there should be lots of options on the table. Nothing should be off. The survey idea that you're talking about, I've actually had someone call me and say they believe that we should hire a survey company to survey a mailing to every single house in the district. Everybody. The other surveys that we've done have been, they've been more selectively responded to, where we've held them in the buildings, and so people come who have got kids or teachers or whatever, and some of the people aren't getting to those surveys, and they don't go online. The one that we had that was done online, many people don't go online to do it. So a survey is a wonderful idea, and I would be way behind that to survey every house in the district and get that input back. Though that would have to be done fairly quickly if we're going to look at something in the spring or next summer.
Right, exactly. And the person that I was contacted, it's called School Perceptions, which is just one of these companies. He offered to come and explain things. Unfortunately, he's actually at another district the same night as our work session, so unless, I don't know that we could change it, but we could check board schedules and whatnot. But again, the information that he's provided us probably can be conveyed. The survey, again, would be one piece to the overall plan that we need to develop, and obviously not every decision is going to be made on the 24th, but at least we can develop a time frame on when we get this stuff done and when we expect to have a plan. Yes, Tom?
The mailing to every household doesn't necessarily mean effectiveness. I've done a number of market studies and determining the viability of YMCAs in communities and whether they would support it, what would they pay for it, what do they want in it. And so I would certainly advocate for a professional and a quantitative study, not a qualitative study, which is basically what we had, I think, the first time around.
Okay. Anyone else? Bruce?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a good part of our discussion, I think, at the work session. Again, the timing is an interesting one because of the interest rates, right? I mean, we want to do the right thing there as well. We certainly can't rush into anything, but we do need to be focused on getting a solution here for the community. So, we need to work much more diligently this time and differently in terms of getting that public input. And, so if we can be challenging ourselves in that way, I think it'd be great. So I'm looking forward to that next work session.
All right. Any other comments?
Just one other comment. I have a list of things. I've been making a list since when people have been calling and making comments to me. I've been keeping them on a list. So when we have the work session, I'll bring that list along. There's lots of things on there, reasons why they voted no on this, what they might support, ideas that they might support, and I'll bring that list along. And at the work session, I'll type it all up and make copies for everybody, and then we can talk about those ideas that have already been verbally presented to us.
All right.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I think it'd be helpful if we have information that we're bringing, if we could circulate it to board members ahead of time through the superintendent, or just to make sure that we can read it and absorb it instead of trying to respond to it there. That'd be helpful.
Yep.
Would it be okay if I type that up and get it to Mary and have her send it out to everybody
Sure.
prior to that? Okay, I'll do that. I'll get it typed up and get it to you sometime here by the end of the week. Thank you.
Right, any other ideas? Again, we will be posting, the meeting is really already scheduled, but barring some kind of schedule change, the plan is to go forward on that night with the start of the plan. We're not going to have every decision again made on that night, but I think we need to take into account all the factors that will be needed to establish something we can come back to the voters with. All right.
One other quick comment,
Yeah.
Jamie, sorry. You know, and again, just for the public, if you, because we probably won't have a real formal, easy way to get it out there. If you've got ideas or if you've got something that you want to get into us, get it into us before that discussion or the work session. And, you know, get engaged now because your involvement will help us get to that good solution. So, you know, a lot of people have been sending information in. People that even weren't as vocal before are a little bit more vocal now. But I think they're doing it for all the right reasons to continue to drive. So again, just to the public, get your comments into us, you know, and we'll make sure to bring them up for discussion. So thanks.
Anyone else? All right. Thank you for your input there. And we now have citizens' request to speak. And Mr. Secretary, Tim, do we have any other requests other than those that you've already handed me? No additional. All right. So we have 3 requests. Given that that's fairly limited, I'm not going to give the full 5 minutes. And so first up is Kurt Weiss. And Kurt said that he wants to talk about trust.
My name is Kurt Weiss, and I live at 613 Cedar Drive North. And I do want to talk about trust. I think there's a little bit of a lack of trust with people in the community, with the school board and the superintendent. What I would ask the school board to do is to be a little bit more open and acknowledge some of the things that are happening in our school system that you didn't acknowledge the last time. We have steadily declining enrollment, 319 kids this year in kindergarten, and it's going to be less than that next year. In 2010, you had 82 births at Hudson Hospital to mothers that live in Hudson. That doesn't bode well for your kindergarten numbers next year. Acknowledge those numbers. Acknowledge the fact that we're over 500 under capacity at the elementary level. We built for 3,000, and I think we have 2,400 and something in the elementary level. Acknowledge the class sizes at the middle school are reasonable at 22 and a half, and we've got space there. Acknowledge the high school, we can do things to help the hallway situation. We don't have to have kids coming across the entire school all day long. I've talked to Jamie about this. I've talked to Bruce about this. I think I've talked to Brian about this. You know, when it comes to parking, you can always say sophomores can't park at the high school, and just juniors and seniors. Parking doesn't become a huge issue until the sophomores start to get their licenses. So, you know, there's things that we can do as a school board to free up some space. Cafeteria, you could have open campus. New Richmond, River Falls, Somerset, they all have open campus. Why do we have a closed campus? Why can't our kids go home for lunch? That would free up some cafeteria space. I do believe that there's support in the community for a solution at the high school and the middle school. I do believe that. And I do believe the board needs to reach out to people to help them get to that point. But I will say this tonight. I understand that Ms. Bowen-Egerbraten is retiring at the end of the year. There's a serious level of mistrust with your superintendent, not only with the people who voted no, but many of the people who voted yes. This incident with Jeanette Kuntz is a prime example of what happens in our district. Emails that I have where she's releasing private information to Marty Jensen, attorney-client privilege information, looking for ways to charge Ms. Kuntz with something after the situation. That was a horrible thing. There was no law broken. A person went to a school board meeting, and then someone came to their house at 10:30 at night. That's the kind of stuff that needs to stop. And I would ask this evening and say that I don't think we're going to move forward unless Ms. Bowen-Eggerbrotten steps down immediately. I don't care if the board buys out her contract. It needs to happen. She needs to go. And I think we can move forward. That'll be a big step in the healing process to have her gone from our district. And that's what I have to say.
All right. Next is Roy Schoberg. Mr. Schoberg is going to speak about formation of Hudson is a positive community study group.
Wow. Thanks for your service, all of you. It's been a tough time in our fair community. Yeah, it was voted down, but that's not my complaint. My complaint is the rancor, the ill will, the statements of distrust that, well, you've just heard it again, that has caused many of our people to wonder, do they really want to even live here? It's been happening in this community for a number of years, and I think that has to stop. And so I want to find a way to aggressively attack this sickness that we have in our community that is just going unchecked. And someone has to call people like Mr. Weiss to the carpet on this when they make their personal attacks, and then they go ahead and publish them in our local paper. It drives this community nuts. I do agree with him, though, on one statement that he made, and that is we want to do something. We want to do something positive for this community. I'm delighted to hear, Jamie and Brian, that we have a work plan ready to go. But I think this community has to step up and stand right with you, and I'd be one to join a group that are not on the board, that are going to rise up, and we're going to gather together, and we're going to reach across the table with each other, and we're going to find a common solution. And you can do your thing, but I think the community has to gather in this, and we have to take over the public agenda here. We have to reach out, we have to have coffees, we have to have the public forum. You have to do what you have to do, and we will attend, but I think the committee has to rise up, the community has to rise up and band together and show our support. So I'd be willing to do that. So before I heard your solution, I came up with an idea, and that was to form a Hudson is a Positive Community Study Group. And it would be a group of 12 men and 12 women who, the only requirement is that we all realize we need to do something now to improve our secondary school facilities. So we need to come together to problem solve with good old-fashioned cross-the-table communication. So as long as, like Board Member Gerke is proclaiming, as long as we're willing to come to the table with solutions, we should all talk together. I want to be there. So let's, through these public surveys and forums, build a consensus for the best solution. Once we come up with that consensus, then the study group can band out, and we can go into the neighborhoods and with small groups, and we can dispel this misinformation and these types of tactics that keep cropping up, even when they come to us from Russia. And let's elect city officials who respect and represent the public's will, and thus make the dead dog track a viable, if not most preferred, option once again. So let's get going. If asked to participate, I'm in, and I hope that other community, civic-minded people like myself would join together to help our community gain strength again and band together. Let's reach across the table. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And next up, we have Annette Cook. Her subject is thank you.
Annette Cook, 486 Carriage Lane. I would just like to thank all of you tonight for your dedication to the students of our district. I know the hard job that you have. I've been there. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of time away from home in meetings. but you are charged with doing what is best for the students of our district. That was my goal as a school board member. I believe it is the goal of the members here. Hudson has a reputation for academic excellence. They have always had that reputation. And I believe that we can continue that, but I believe and agree with Mr. Schoberg, with Roy, that this community needs to come together. We've had enough of the attacks through the paper, through websites under anonymous names. This community needs to come together to do what is best for the children of this district. The attacks need to stop. And as Roy said, we need to reach across the table. We need to find people in the community. I've talked with a lot of people who are willing to work toward that effort. They support what you are doing, but they do not support the negative climate that is in this community, and that is not what we as Hudsonites want to be known for, a negative community that does not move forward, and I think it's time to move forward. My husband and I had 3 children attend and graduate from Hudson High School. They are all doing excellently in their careers. We have 4 grandchildren, and by the way, our children were born not at Hudson Hospital, nor were our grandchildren, but yet they're in the Hudson School District. And I want that same excellent education for my grandchildren and for every child that lives in this community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and now this is the opportunity for any board administrator to respond to public comments that were made just now.
Mr. President, I'm encouraged by the comments tonight, particularly around the idea and the concept that we have to not agree with each other, we have to behave appropriately together. And that's something that we have attempted to do. We've put policy into place so that we could encourage, not discourage, but encourage citizens to come to the microphone and speak to us. But when we put into policies requiring respect and civility, now we're seemingly taking away their right to speak for some reason. So a positive approach, the ability to talk to each other, the ability to reason together, to offer alternatives without throwing insults, without trying to denigrate individuals personally. That's juvenile stuff. When I was the president of the board, I was asking and calling for this community to do exactly what 2 of these citizens just did tonight. Let's stand up. This is our community. We need to work together. Like I said at the beginning, doesn't mean that we agree, but we can certainly be adults. And we can find a solution, find resolution together. That would make this community strong. It's unfortunate, I guess, or maybe it's a blessing in disguise that this referendum failed, because I think it's awoken a sleeping giant, and now I hope we'll be able to move forward.
All right, any other comments? Bruce?
Yeah. So on the evening of the vote, and a couple of you probably heard this story, so I apologize if it's redundant, but I was standing on the corner at Carmichael and Vine holding a sign, and my son, it was a little chilly that night, but he wanted the keys to the car, ran back to the car, grabbed some chocolate, and on the opposite corner were 3 ladies holding vote no signs. And it was a proud moment for me because my son walked up to those ladies and offered them chocolate, and in return one of them pushed the button for my son to cross back across the road. And it's just a sign that we can all work together. We can all do this in a civil way. And maybe we just need to bring a whole boatload of chocolate to the next meeting. So anyway, it's out there, but good to see that those things happen.
Anyone else have any comments about the comments?
Yeah, I'll make a few comments. Well, Bruce, I love chocolate. Ms. Cook made the comment that her children and her grandchildren received an excellent education here. And I'm sure that they did. And what struck me is that they got that excellent education, her words, with the facilities that we currently have. So the facilities aren't what would cause us not to have a good education. Her grandchildren and children got a great one. Not to say the facilities don't need improvement and changes, but we're still giving our kids a great education even with the facilities that we have. She also talked about the negative, and I think Mr. Schoberg talked also about the negativity within the community. But I sell houses in this community, and I'm showing a house again tomorrow, a second showing, to someone who's coming here from a southern state who is so excited to be in Hudson. So it's not all negativity in Hudson. It's a great community. There's wonderful people here. And when people are moving here, they look at that. They listen to these people are renting. They're listening to their neighbors talk about what a great place this is to live. I'm confident this school issue will be resolved, but it's not a negative, bad place to live. There's lots of people that love being here. And then I would just comment about something that Tom said about not denigrating individuals. I would agree with that, that's not the way we should be solving this. That's not what we should be doing as a community. But I do believe that a denigration of an individual is exactly what happened to Jeanette Coons. It happened to me 2 years ago, and it happened to April Simmons. And nobody stood up for us and said, this is not right. We should not be denigrating individuals. And I believe the school board policy even talks about doing things that do not doing anything that would hurt or harm the reputation of someone. Well, we hurt and harmed the reputation of Jeanette Coons. My reputation was harmed 2 years ago, and so was April Simmons's. I just making that comment. We can't denigrate people. We shouldn't have done what has been done.
Mr. President?
Yes, Brian.
Yeah, just one comment. I wasn't going to comment on this, but I'm talking about denigration. We had a board member on talking about denigration. My two boys participated in the civic process of this referendum. And we had a school board member here, Sandy Gerke, who basically posted on her Facebook page calling my two boys, who I'm very proud of and have been good students here in Hudson, called both of my boys sickly on her Facebook page. So, I mean, that's the kind of example of denigrating that's, I think, is unacceptable as leadership. And that was my greatest disappointment in this election, was just the negativity. A lot of people are putting a lot of time into this district. I want to move forward in a positive way, but I also want to call a spade when I see something that I think is an example of what we don't want in our community right now. So I look forward to moving forward in a positive manner, but I'm just calling for all of us to let's just work together on this thing. And Hudson's a great community, and let's put together a great plan that the community can support. So,
Mr. President?
Yes,
I just want to make a comment that obviously passions are really high on both sides of this, and I want to thank all three of the speakers today, because I do think it's going to take all of us reaching across the table, slowing down, being respectful. I mean, we can sit there and point fingers and go backwards, or we can move forwards. And I think this community has spoken, and I appreciate all of you for coming and giving us those opinions, but I do think it's going to take all of us to move forward and move forward together.
Well, with that, yes, I can't echo that anymore, but we need to move forward, not look backwards.
Mr. President, may I make just one comment?
Well, yeah, if you have one comment.
I only used a Facebook picture that was out there on Mr. Bell's site. So, thank you.
Would you put a comment
All
on
right.
that, Sandy?
Well, let's just save that for another time, I guess, and let's try to be positive. And on that note, I want to echo what, build on Ms. Cook, former board president Cook's comments, and that is that I've only been on the board about 1.5 years, and I attended the state school board convention last year. It made me about 2 inches taller and gave me goosebumps to hear the comments from other school board members from other areas that have positive things to say about what's going on in Hudson and what we've done over the last 10 years with our academics and programs, and that we're a model for the rest of the state. In fact, just today, and following up on this issue of a survey, Arcadia School District. They had a referendum that went down twice. It took their third try, they got it passed. One of the things that helped get it passed was doing the survey. And so I was talking to that superintendent about that experience. And just before he concluded our brief telephone call, he said, by the way, I just want to say, you guys are doing a lot of good things there in Hudson. You've got a great reputation in the state, and you've got excellent administration, excellent teachers, and excellent families and students. And so there is a lot of positive things to build on. I just want to make sure that we keep it that way. That's why I ran for the school board, and that's why we're going to get good public input for this next plan. All right. With that, move on to topics for action, and I'm actually going to pull the first topic for action since I'm the president, and put the items on for agenda. And after looking into this survey, it's evident that it would be premature for us to take action on this now. I think we need to discuss this at the next work session, because again, I don't want to authorize $6,000 for a survey that we may not want to take right off the bat. So I'm pulling this from topics for action. Next will be strategic compensation, teacher retirement benefits. Lynn, you have this with Andrea.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Board members, as you may recall, we have been studying retirement benefits as a result of the changes from Act 10. And I think you will see from the work that Andrea and her team have done that they've struck a balance between being competitive in the marketplace, which goes back to our retention and recruitment strategy, and reducing costs to the district and being fiscally responsible and having a plan that's sustainable. The proposal that Andrea will walk you through reflects a tiered structure and implements defined contribution per employee. We have been waiting for the actuarial study, which has been completed now, and Andrea will take us through the details of the plan and the analysis and the proposal.
Okay, thank you. So tonight we're going to talk about a significant component of our multi-year strategic compensation plan, and as Lynn alluded to, it's the early retirement benefits. As I think everybody knows in this room, the increasingly high cost of retirement benefits for employees is a significant concern nationwide, both in the public and private sector. For certified staff, currently, the board has committed to maintaining existing retirement benefits for those eligible to retire by July 1st, 2016. It's eligible to retire, that they don't have to retire at that time. And so beyond 2016, there hasn't been anything defined up to this point. Instead, we're charged with the responsibility of developing a proposal to reduce benefit costs over time. This proposal that we'll be looking at tonight will substantially reduce the district's retirement-related expenses over time. Our current cost of the benefit, of the maximum potential benefit to an employee, is $145,888. Our proposed benefit for certified staff hired after July 1st, 2015 is approximately $54,000, which represents a 63% decrease over certainly a significant period of time, but a 63% decrease in the maximum benefit potential. When we were originally developing the proposal, we really wanted to look at what is a fair and reasonable benefit for our existing teachers with varying levels of experience and time until retirement, and then also what is a fair and reasonable benefit for new hires. Trying to strike that balance between retention, recruitment, comparability, and then certainly fiscal sustainability and responsibility. So we established a goal of with this new plan to retain our current teachers and encourage future recruitment through a fiscally sustainable retirement benefit. I know this is probably incredibly difficult for people to see, but it's also in the material, so I'm looking up at the screen. And what you can see with this proposal, and as part of our process, just to clarify, this has been presented to personnel as well as the finance committee, and there was consensus on both committees to move this forward to tonight. But what you can see with this proposal is that we tried to have as many constants as possible, while at the same time certainly reducing the benefit over time. Some of the constants include the retirement age being maintained at 57 with the 15 years of service, continued access to district health and dental insurance, February 1st, application deadline, and then funding vehicles still to be determined. We're still weighing the pros and cons associated with varying vehicles, whether it's HRA or 403B or 457, but then also including a sick leave payout and retaining that component through all of the groups going forward. So what we have then is Group 1, which is our 2016ers, we call them, which is the established benefit that the board has already previously committed to. And that one would remain as is and no change to that. Group 2, and then thereafter, what we did was we defined groups. We had a step-down process whereby we were recognizing both eligibility to retire and, again, the years of service. What struck us as we were working through this process that there were numerous employees who weren't eligible to retire by what we were, kind of doing 5-year lumps. They weren't eligible to retire at that point, but yet they already had significant time in the district, whether it's 20 years plus. And so we wanted to recognize both of those components. So you can see in Group 2, it's eligible to retire before July 1st, 2021, or 20 years of service by 7/116. And then the proposal is to contribute at retirement $1,050 per month for up to 8 years. And the Group 3 is eligible to retire by 2026 or 15 years of service by 7/116 for a max the monthly contribution of $850 per month for up to 8 years of Medicare eligibility. Group 4 is eligible to retire by July 1st, 2036 or 10 years of service by 7/116. Group 5 is then the other any other existing employees currently employed, and then Group 6 is future hires. So nobody currently on our payroll would be in Group 6. So we have that step-down process over time. Going from Group 1 to Group 2 is about a 23% reduction in the benefit, and then 2 to 3 is 17%, then 15%, 15%, and 18%. So you can see it's a deliberate, purposeful step-down process in terms of the compensation or the maximum retirement benefit for the employees. At the bottom of the document, again, difficult for people to see, but we have our comparables, the comparables that were established by the board, detailing where they are kind of right now, the existing Group 1, and you can see the average is $157,000 maximum benefit to Group 6, where the average is about a $53,000 benefit, and we kind of worked into the middle from there. So we wanted, certainly our goals we feel have been met by encouraging recruitment, retention, and then comparability. At the same time, our actuaries have now come back and said that it's fiscally sustainable over time, and that Tim can certainly speak more, but there's significant savings associated with this plan.
That's your cue, Tim.
That's my cue. Sorry. Okay. So, when we look at this plan, it certainly delinks the issue that we have of having a benefit tied to health insurance increases that happen each year. And so that's where we begin to see a lot of the savings. In fact, if we project out, it takes some time because we have two different groups, if you will, that move through the system. So it takes some time, but over time we will see some pretty significant cost savings, reaching into the up to $1.5 million per year. So again, really making the change in the structure of the benefits is really what is doing that, and that's something that makes it sustainable. So.
Any questions?
Questions from board members? All right, Bruce?
Yeah, just a comment. I mean, we had a good discussion on this. I think it's a good plan. That transitionary time, I mean, this is where we're at right now. If you think about Act 10 getting to where we're at. So, it's a great step forward. I know we had some discussions around Group 5 and Group 4. Will there be an answer to that in a way where,
we're still exploring.
Okay.
The options there. Tim and I have talked a little bit more about, really looking at the who exactly is in that group and the benefits associated with each of the Group 4 and Group 5. I think there's still some unknowns that we have to speak to a little bit more, do a little more research into before we can have any concrete answers. Okay.
But that's essentially a decision we can make at a later time, right? I mean, that's not...
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, no further questions. I mean, it is very well described earlier in our work session, so thank you.
Any other comments or
Just
questions?
one.
Sandy?
I had a chance to look at this before, and I actually had to print it out because it was kind of small on my screen, but I did
Yes.
print it out, and I took a good look at it. And you've really done a lot of work on this. Thank you. It looks good to me. It's going to save us a lot of money. Thank you.
And yes, thank you, Andrea and Tim, for your work on this. You know, in the post-Act 10 discussions, if you will, there was a fair amount of angst, I think, once the collective bargaining was kind of done away with, what's going to happen with the benefits. And to a large degree, Act 10 helped school boards and school districts deal with the financial realities of things. But at the same time, you know, trying to balance that, and I think that this district has done the right steps. It's very tough. You say, why do you have 6 groups? Well, I mean, it comes down to fairness. It's not fair to wake up one morning because the law was passed and say, now you've lost all your benefits. And to have that assurance that you don't have to run out and retire today in order to hold those benefits, that was a smart move, number one. And number two, this is fulfilling the promise that we made that something would be in place that would be fair. And anytime you incorporate such a change as this, there's going to be people who fall right, you know, 2 days after the next step. And that's, while it's unfortunate, you got to make decisions along the way. But to get that kind of reduction, roughly $90,000, and this is per employee, the future financial benefit keeps us on the sound path that this district's been on for the last 10 years in the way that we've under-levied and everything. So these are the right steps. This is, in my view, very fair, and it does not force anyone to retire. And by the same token, it just, you know, if people love teaching and want to teach into their 60s, there's nothing wrong with this. But this is a move to get closer to what we see in the private sector. So, you know, with raising the retirement age, these are some of the tough things that had to be decided, but financially, all around, we want to be fair. And retention, that's what this comes down to, is retaining the good people. We have good people in place, we want to keep them. Anybody else?
Well said.
Can I make a motion?
Yes.
I make a motion to accept the strategic compensation teacher retirement benefits plan that Andrea and Tim have presented to us this evening.
Second.
All right, motion by Sandy, and a second by Lynn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. It's been a while since we had an action item with a voice vote, so. All right, next up is going to be Tom Holland and Andrea talking about the Certified Staff Handbook revision, particularly looking at contract amounts for athletic extracurricular activities.
Yeah, I'll just be brief about this and turn it over to Andrea, but our purpose as a personnel committee was to look at the certified staff handbooks and look at potential revisions or revisions that we really needed to put into place based on requirements around Title IX. So it's it was an effort to align equal pay for equal work, basically, to simplify it a bit. And Andrea, I'll just let you give the details on that.
Sure, thank you, Tom. So we did have a proposal, as we have in the materials, to modify certain sports to extracurricular activities to be equivalent. So for example, girls basketball and boys basketball, there was a differential between the two. Girls basketball, it was assistant, now it's going to be called JV2, and this was done pursuant to conversations with our athletic director, where there was a bit of an oddity in that the girls basketball assistant was earning more than the girls basketball JV coach, and this was also different than the boys basketball equivalent. So we are proposing a reduction in the cost, or for the compensation for that, to $3,033. We're also proposing, and this was a non-Title IX issue, but both girls golf and boys golf
they had an assistant position where a few years back, apparently they split it into two positions so that each sport would have a position, and divided the salary, the extracurricular amount in half, and down to $977, and really a difficult to fill position when it's only $977 for the season, and so we made it two different positions, so it's $1954 for both the boys and the girls, again, equivalent. Same thing with boys and girls soccer, is that there was a differential between the boys and the girls there, and the proposal here would make the compensation equivalent. Similarly, with girls softball and boys baseball, there was a differential between the different positions that were essentially equivalent positions, which in an effort certainly to always be in compliance with the law, we're proposing tonight that there be an adjustment made on those items as well. The last item would be to delete the adapted hockey positions because we no longer have that program. So this would be our proposal tonight.
Right. So in sum, we're eliminating a position, we're raising some girls coaches, lowering, or raising some boys coaches, and
Yes.
in the end, making it fair for both, for Title IX compliance.
Correct.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I guess just a question and a comment. We went through this last year, and we went through a much larger list, right? So, I mean, we really had to...
Before me.
Right.
Yeah.
So
then it was the year, it was the spring before I started, yes.
Okay. I remember going through that process because it was a much bigger list. So, I mean, this is a very small change in total. And you looked at all the various positions, I presume, across
Correct. Yep. We did an analysis of what we considered comparable sports under the law, and then looked at that and figured out, for example, the boys baseball, girls softball, and compared the two to make sure that there were no additional discrepancies.
Okay. And in the net here, I mean, I haven't done the math, but it doesn't look like it's a lot of, I mean, you have some that went up, a couple that went down, it looks like.
It's approximately an
Yeah.
$1,800
Change total.
Yes, total.
Okay.
It's
Thank-
not gonna break our salary budget. All right.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Andrea, so I'm understanding this is to keep us out of purgatory jail or out of discrimination jail?
It's
So
an
we don't
effort to
discriminate?
ensure compliance with Title IX. Yeah.
Okay, and that is, Title IX is to make sure that we're treating boys and girls sports the same. Am I correct? No?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
That's a component of it. Yep.
All right, great. Thank you for the work.
And just to clarify too, this is always subject to participation levels. I mean, in some areas, if we don't need a JV2 coach, we don't hire
have
one.
Right. Exactly. It depended. Yes, and we're always allowed to have different numbers of coaches, different numbers of assistants based on the programming. Yes.
I just remember when my son was in freshman basketball and there was 46 kids out for freshman basketball. So, yeah, in some of our areas, we get a lot of participation. We need more coaches. And, yeah. So, any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. President, move to approve the certified staff handbook revision contract amounts for athletic extracurricular activities.
Second.
Motion by Lynn, second by Bruce. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion passes. Next on action items would be board policy 3540. This is a brand-new policy. That's why it's under topics for action and not under the consent agenda. So it's anti-discrimination criteria for free and reduced meals. And Tim, you're introducing this, I presume, because it has some, does it have some budget impact?
Well, it's under nutrition services. That would be under my area of responsibility.
Okay, you're the nutrition guy. Okay, good to know.
Kind of. We rely on Peg Eller and the rest of the staff over there to do that, which they do a very good job of, an excellent job of. This is, as you mentioned, Jamie, briefly, it's a required policy. It was required WASB, and part of that policy review was required this policy. And the Finance Committee reviewed the policy and did endorse it. I won't read it verbatim, but you can see the points as far as looking at the different things the district shall do, serving the meals that meet the minimum federal nutritional standards unless approved for a waiver, offer free and reduced price meals to eligible students, etc. And then under that, there's a paragraph which has really pretty standard language for non-discrimination for students involved in those programs. And then on the second page, again, it's certainly a regulated program by federal and state regulations, and this is a piece of that that we're required to have in place. So I'd entertain any questions if you have them.
Any questions for Tim on this? Again, it's unfortunate we have to have more policies, but when they're mandated and everything, we have to follow the law. Some of this is common sense stuff, but it's also very important. I don't want to make light because people with food allergies and the like, this is a very serious issue for them. So anyway, if there's no comments, I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
Second.
All right, it's been moved to approve this new policy by Tom, second by Bruce. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, it passes. Last item on topics for action. And my name's next to it. It's appointing a board delegate for the State Education Conference. And last year, Tom appointed me. And I don't know, I must have been absent for the spin the bottle game that was played, and my name was next to it. But no, actually, I having attended it, highly endorse it, and I'm actually going to ask for volunteers first before I force anyone to go to Milwaukee in the coldest week of the year.
What's the date of the?
January 21st to the 23rd. By being appointed delegate, that means that you have to attend the portion of the convention where there's actual business conducted and resolutions. It was interesting. I mean, there's resolutions from some of these districts, and then it's fun to get see people get up and they get excited and they get all, get going on some of the stuff which otherwise would be boring. But
Is that your cell job, Jamie?
yeah. It's
trying to encourage
it's not the
somebody
best
to
90 minutes of my
volunteer.
life, I'll be honest, but it was still educational. I'm all about education. So anyone want to be the delegate to sit on the interesting and compelling argument or debate over resolutions and so forth? Out of town, Tom?
I'll go.
You'll go?
I hear.
I'll go!
I hear so much.
Let me
so much
rephrase that. I'll go!
excitement in your voice.
All right. Lynn, you're appointed. Thank you, Jamie. And I guess I'll appoint myself as the alternate since, I was planning on going, so.
Thank you. I have the flu that week frequently, so.
All right. Don't use that as a crutch there. All right. All right, so unless there's objection to that appointment, going once, going twice, it's sold to Lynn. All right. Next, we have consent items, and I would take a motion with the language.
Mr. President, I move approval of the consent items and that the Director of Financial Services be authorized to pay bills in the amount of $2,107,950.65.
Second.
Motion by Lynn, second by Brian. There's no discussion on consent items, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The consent items pass.
Mr. President,
Yes, Andrea.
if I may, I would like to recognize a retirement that you just took action on, and to recognize our superintendent, Mary Bowen Eggerbrotten, for her 10 years of service as of the end of June, and that you have now accepted her retirement, and I have the distinct privilege to recognize that tonight.
Thank you,
Mr.
Andrea.
President?
Yes,
I wonder
Tom.
if I could make a statement regarding the same subject that Andrea has just brought up. I took the time to write things down, and I normally don't do that, because I just want to make sure that I can attempt to capture exactly my feelings about our superintendent. And with that, I'll say it's with sadness, and it's but also an element of pride, and certainly not unexpected that I received word of Mary Bowen Eggerbotten's plan to retire at the end of the school year. Superintendent Bowen Eggerbrotten has delivered remarkable leadership. vision, and collaboration among staff and board members during her tenure. She will leave the district far ahead of where it was when she took the position nearly 10 years ago. The list of accomplishments are absolutely staggering. I would submit few, if any, districts in the state of Wisconsin have achieved are at or near the same level that the Hudson School District has reached over these past 10 years. Prior to Mary's tenure with us, the following important, meaningful accomplishments did not exist. SMART goals, making way for our ability to quantifiably measure student outcomes and set goals to reach higher academic levels with all of our students. Teacher development and collaboration, the setting aside of time and resources enabling teachers who share common students to meet together to share important information and strategize best practices for those individual student needs. Teacher advisories. With the passage of Act 10, the formation of a teacher representative group in lieu of a union has brought about more open communication, collaborative problem solving, and goodwill that this district hasn't seen in the past. Passage of 2 out of 3 referendums. The third referendum remains an ongoing process to determine what this community will support. Freshman academies that has enhanced our freshmen' ability to acclimate to new surroundings and establish their goals for a successful high school career and post-high school education. High School of the Future, the adaptation of the remarkably successful house model used in our middle school, creating a community of students with common disciplinary interests that move with them throughout their 4 years of high school. Administrative excellence, annually in the top echelon of school districts in the state of Wisconsin in academic performance, and at the bottom tier of districts in cost per student. No Hudson taxpayer can legitimately argue that they're not receiving high value for their tax dollar investment. Countless awards and recognition, so much so that other districts are requesting presentations from us on how the Hudson School District is achieving those accomplishments. The list can go on. But what is remarkable is that even with all this success, there continues to be a negative element in this community that has made Superintendent Bowen Egerbrotten a target to release their hatred and disdain. I've asked myself time and again over the nearly 9 years of my tenure on this board, what is driving this attitude and behavior? It's a difficult question because we're dealing with individuals who don't want to discuss the issues, listen to opposing views, and offer legitimate alternatives. Rather, they choose to stand on the side, throw insults, false accusations, creating their own facts that are unsubstantiated, all in an attempt to defame, denigrate, smear the good name of our superintendent. In some cases, the behavior has been fueled by an accountability issue that had to be dealt with. Or for others, they just don't seem to be happy unless they're unhappy. Whatever it is, it's a mystery to me. Now, with this announcement of Mary's retirement, there will be celebration by some who will take credit for this decision and see it as a win for their side. This is the side whose only apparent objective is, again, to tear down, discredit, and destroy. I assure you, Mary has been planning the timing of this announcement for a number of years now, and she will leave after 10 years of service when the average tenure of a superintendent is 3 to 5 years. All of this makes it even more remarkable what Mary and her team have accomplished over the past 10 years, given the vitriol climate she's had to work under at times. So thank you, Superintendent Bowen Egerbrotten, for your outstanding service and accomplishments. You are a remarkable leader, a visionary, and a change agent. This Hudson School District has benefited from you greatly.
All right. Any other comments from board members?
Just one comment. So, thanks, Tom, for that. That was well said. So, I'll although I don't always agree with Mary, and I haven't always agreed on a number of issues, I really support the work that she's done and her team and the entire school district. So I'll have more words to say, Mary, over time. But also to the district administration it's our time to kind of continue to move forward. We've started some great work, and look forward to bringing having a great new superintendent that I know Mary's going to work with us on and make sure we make the kind of the right moves here. We have a lot of work ahead of us, but I just want to thank all the work from the district administration and leadership. And Mary set a great foundation, and now it's up to the team to kind of build on top of that. And I look forward for the future, but I also am really thankful for the work that you've done, Mary, and your team.
Anyone else? Bruce?
Just real quick. So the comments that have been said are, I certainly would echo the amount of change that's happened here. And I've only been on the board a short amount of time, and in the community a short amount of time. But the point about looking at this as an opportunity, we have real strong leadership in this district. We have tremendous principals. We have wonderful teachers. I mean, it's really tremendous. And the fact that, they have gotten behind you and been supportive, now it's their time to step up even more and continue the great work that we have, that you've done here with HSD 2025. I know all of you firmly believe in that and want to see that continue here in this district. So, this is an opportunity for you guys, I think, as well to keep that light shining and continue to see the results that we have here in this district. And I have no doubt that will continue to happen here under the tremendous leadership that we have in our schools today. So thank you for your continued leadership as we go through this time of transition as well. So thank you.
All right. Lynn?
I just wanted to comment to you, Mary, on the leadership team, the team that you've established here. I'm so impressed by this team, and it's a great credit to you, this team that you've put in place to lead the district. The teachers that we have on staff under the leadership of our principals, thank you to them. And most importantly, why we're here, the students. And the progress that they've made is a testament to your work and your commitment. I don't think there's anybody who could ever doubt your commitment to our students and that you put students first. Thank you.
I have to, you stole my thunder there, Lynn. I was gonna.
Sorry.
But yeah, that's the danger of leading the meeting and let everyone else talk first. So I just want to commend Tom for very well written, a lot of good comments there. I don't want to repeat all those, and I'm glad that I think Bruce mentioned the HSD 2025, which again, just another example of other districts saying, wow, that is a vision, that is the goal. This is what we want for our students and making them career and college ready. In Mary's office is the book, Good to Great. And our firm, that was required reading. We had a retreat about 10, 12 years ago. And a lot of good lessons in that book. One of the main premises is getting the right people on the bus. Because we're, as the board, we like to think we're the drivers of the bus, but really, we set the policy, and you have to have the right people in place. And Mary's been driving the bus, and we set the direction, but how it gets there and how fast it gets there is really up to that. And what I've seen in the year and a half I've been on the board is that really have a lot of great people on the bus, a lot of great people in place. And the good thing for us is that we have also got, in many of those instances, we have many years left from those people. So I was trying to say that in such a way without recognizing that this is a retirement and something that comes at the end of a long career. Fortunate to have a superintendent who has had experience being on a board of education, seeing it from our side. So without going on and on, I think that the idea of keeping students number one, every decision that I've seen her make has always had, what is the impact on the students first, families, and always keeping in mind the teachers. We have a lot of great staff, administration in place, and will have for years and hopefully generation to come, and it's because of her. So I want to thank you for your efforts. All right, with that, we'll go to committee reports. You get a retort? All right.
Well, certainly any leader doesn't do this alone. And I appreciate you need support, and this board and the boards that I've worked with over the last 10 years have provided that support and direction and guidance for me in this role. But again, moving the district forward doesn't come from this seat by itself. It comes with a great leadership team and the directors around this table. I think of all of our principals, all of our associate principals, our coordinators, and then I think of our teacher leaders who are also key in the decisions that we make in the district, and they are part of that collaborative team for us to move forward. Teachers in every classroom, and our support staff, very dedicated support staff. So when I think of all of those people working together for each and every student every day to help them learn and exceed at a higher level, I feel blessed to be here. Thank you.
All right. So you get to have the final word on that, and we'll move on to committee reports. Tom, you had the Personnel Committee meeting on November 4th.
I would just, before I get to this report, I'd like to just qualify my statements regarding Mary, was that Mary did not call me and ask me to say something about it.
Okay.
So the Personnel Committee met on November 4th, and we discussed the strategic compensation teacher retirement planning, which was delivered earlier by Andrea. Compensation for teacher benchmarks. It's annually the decision of the Personnel Committee and ultimately the board to endorse a certain level of subsidy, or not subsidy, but compensation for certain marks that are met with trainings. And Johnson moved and seconded by Whitaker to endorse $1,700 for benchmarks and $5,000 for master's achievements. And it was to be moved forward to the Board of Education for action. We also discussed, as I mentioned before, and Andrea has covered already, the handbook revision, the contract amounts for athletic extracurricular activities. We talked about that. Board policy, work update, and consideration of additional time for Nancy Sweet. As you may know, Nancy, retired HR director for this district, has been working to update our policies, and we are way behind in updating those, but she's making headway. Part of her issue is just getting meetings with staff, who are very, very busy. So we took some action on this, and Whitaker moved, seconded by Johnson, to authorize up to 24 additional days for a total of 45 days to be completed by September 30th, 2015. So that's my report, Mr. President.
All right. And since I was substituting for Sandy, I just wanted to recognize just the clarification, or point out that on the endorsement for the benchmark and for the masters, the amount $1,700 and $5,000, that is basically the same amount that had been for the last 3 years, correct?
Correct.
And these are things that were anticipated when the current budget was prepared. This is not any new dollars into the budget.
No.
And benchmarks are capped at 2, right?
And with the 5,000 and 1,700, it's the maximum would be 6,700 that someone would be eligible for.
Okay. Thank you, Tom, for that report. Learning and Program Development Committee, Brian, that's you.
Thanks. We covered 4 topics. 2 of them we just were 2 procedures that we just approved in the consent items, so I'll skip those. The third was co-located health services, which I'm pretty excited about. Tony presented this to our committee. Basically, we're going to co-locate some mental health services in 3 schools, EP Rock, the high school, and the middle school is kind of a pilot. And 20% of our students are working, are challenged or facing mental illness. And so by having co-located help there through family means, it'll be a way to get those services to our students and try to take maybe some of the friction away of making that happen. We're going to try this out and see how it goes, and then we'll come back to the board in May of 2015 to kind of see if we can make this into a larger plan. So we do a lot of great work in this district thanks to work Tony and the team, and so this is just another extension of that. So.
Any questions for Brian on his committee report?
And one other thing was the fourth thing was, and Bruce brought up is we're continue to look for ways to be more open and transparent with the community. And one area that one community member had an idea last month of having when people come when citizens come up to speak, maybe annotate their name and maybe the topic. And so we're going to start putting that into the minutes. So we'll start doing that. And the second thing is, I just want to point out that I hear a lot that we kind of force citizens to speak at the end of the meeting. We don't. If you look today, it's the 5th topic on the agenda. I just want to make sure that the community understands that we don't wait to the end to listen to the community. And the only thing is, if there's a particular topic for action, is that we want to have that discussion tied to that particular conversation for that community member. So it is actually in the front of the agenda, not on the tail end. So I've heard misconceptions around that.
So am I correct in assuming that then the 3 citizens we had speak tonight, their names will be in the minutes for the next meeting?
Yep.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yep.
You said 20% of our students have mental health issues?
Yeah, that's correct. Tony? Yep.
Wow. Is that, Tony, is that standard nationwide, or are we high or low? That seems like a lot.
That's a national statistic.
So it's not Hudson statistic?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't know what it is for Hudson?
I don't have an exact number off the top of my
okay.
head. I'm sorry.
I misunderstood that.
That's not necessarily
IEPs
and things like that, but there may be different things that working through and stuff like that. So
I thought you said that was for Hudson, so
no,
that's
it's
why I
national.
was. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I have a question for Brian, or just a comment. Brian, and maybe I missed it. You did say that this co-located mental health, that there is no cost to the taxpayer for this service that Family Means is.
It's cost free right now. I think there may, but we'll see how the pilot goes, and then there may be a joint investment if we want to go on a larger scale, and that's kind of TBD. So
could also be some opportunities for some grants, perhaps.
Potentially.
Right.
We love grants.
Yes. We like donations and we like grants. Yes. All right. Any other questions for Brian? All right. Then committee reports. Lynn, you're the final one on Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had 5 items on our agenda. We've covered all of them except for 2. The first one we haven't covered yet in this meeting is the 2014-15 quarterly financial update. The committee reviewed the financials to date, and we are on budget and had no items of concern to report to the greater board. Secondly, we talked about the health insurance history. And of note to the board would be that we reviewed the plan year claims from July 1st, 2013 through June 30th, 2014, and the district saved $1,882,369 by transitioning to a self-funding model. So that's direct savings to our taxpayer and a similar benefit to our employees. So, and that's all I have to report.
Thank you. We always like good news from your committee.
Ta-da!
All right. We've completed our agenda, and so we are
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.